In this episode of the Encounter Report, we pit the old versus the new in Super Mario RPG. On Team Original, we have Axelrod, your humble narrator, who did a second-plus playthrough using the Wii U Virtual Console. Yulamasa, who did a semi-blind playthrough on the SNES Classic. Xtree, who played the game blind on an emulator. And Cyanesis, who played the game blind on an emulator. On Team Remake, we have Nakuri, who did a second-plus playthrough on the Switch. BGG02, the anti-grinding specialist who did a second-plus playthrough on the Switch. Daolite, who played the game blind on the Switch. And Quillpig Gaming, who played the game blind on the Switch. Winner takes all the marbles because we ran out of Pogs. You remember Pogs, right? First up are battle types, and we will have Team Original set the baseline. When looking at total time and comparing it to total encounters, we definitely have some strangeness occurring for random encounters. While I have the lowest amount in both columns, Yulamasa contains the highest number of random encounters, but is significantly shorter in total time compared to Cyanesis, who has the second lowest encounter count. Xtree then sits between them, having more random encounters than Cyanesis but less time spent in them. Overall, Yulamasa becomes one of the larger outliers for Team Original, where he can have such low times despite having equal to or higher encounter totals. This shows that despite playing the game semi-blind, he grasped onto whatever past knowledge and developed strong strategies as the game progressed. This can also be seen in the character deaths, where his struggles aren't as impactful. For Xtree and Cyanesis, their dynamic will be another to keep an eye on. While having played the game for the first time with no prior knowledge, their numbers are pretty close to each other, so seeing where and how they deviate will provide some nice insight. Moving over to Team Remake, we see some interesting quirks as well. BGG02 has the highest amount of random encounters even though his total time is less than everyone but Daolite. In fact, both BGG02 and Nakuri have the highest random encounter totals despite this not being their first time beating the game. Their times are also just short of Quillpig Gaming, who has the highest time. Overall, Team Remake has a pretty normal spread. Super Mario RPG has its share of optional and side content, of which both Nakuri and BGG02 engaged in. Both of them struggled less and got to utilize their knowledge of the game to achieve new heights. For Daolite and Quillpig Gaming, they both did a blind playthrough and their numbers don't look too far off from those with experience. The remake version adds a lot of handy tools that the original didn't possess, and it seems like that played a good role in evening out the experience. For the head-to-head, I'm going to show total time, total encounters, and average time, as I think these will show some differences between the two versions. And with total time, only Yulamasa and myself managed to be in the same range as Team Remake for random encounters. However, venturing into boss times really illustrates another angle. Team Original found bosses to be significantly more time-consuming. The lowest average time is Yulamasa at 5 minutes 7 seconds, while Xtree averages 7 minutes 41 seconds. Team Remake, on the other hand, have much lower values, where Nakuri has the lowest at 4 minutes 13 seconds, but Quillpig Gaming has much higher average at 5 minutes 57 seconds. However, though Quillpig Gaming has a much higher boss average time, his total time is still lower than Yulamasa, who had the fastest times of Team Original. In nearly every metric, Team Remake has noticeably shorter investment values. Even BGG02's random encounter numbers can be construed to be significantly lower than what is shown, which we will get to later. Transitioning over to battle locations, we can see where encounters took place, and for the most part, all outdoor areas are classified as world map here, with a few exceptions like Forest Maze. Here we can see that Nakuri, Daolite, and Quillpig Gaming all have similar dungeon and world map encounter totals. However, we witness another anomaly with BGG02 where he had a significant jump in encounters compared to his teammates. Perhaps even more interesting is the fact that he had over 100 more encounters than Quillpig Gaming, but that amounts to less than 5 minutes of encounter time when comparing them. Meanwhile, Nakuri and Daolite both have similar times and total encounters for dungeons and world map, but the impact on their playthroughs differs quite a bit. Nakuri spent 21% of his stream doing dungeon encounters, while taking up 55% of the grand total of encounter time. Daolite sits at 29 stream percent and 69 of encounter time percent. For Team Original, we have the interesting dynamic where everyone spent 66% of their total encounter time in dungeon encounters. We also see a large disparity between blind and the other playthroughs. Yulamasa and myself both have the lowest times for all categories as well as the highest and lowest total encounters for most, which is not typically seen. For Hextree and Cynesis, once again, they maintain pretty close numbers. However, the stream percent perhaps shows the start of a schism between them, where Cynesis spent 7% more time in dungeon encounters. Both Hextree and Cynesis have very close total encounter time, but Hextree has more than 4 hours of total VOD time than Cynesis, so that also sticks out. In the head-to-head, we will once again take a look at total time, total encounters, and average time. For Team Remake, Town Encounter sticks out. Despite the fewer amount of encounters, and even the low amounts of time spent in them, they prove to be much more time-consuming. And yet, the same is true for Team Original, where their average time is also higher than the others. As a whole, which is something that will be a consistent factor, Team Original will find themselves spending more time in battles even if they may not engage in significantly more of them. Not only does Team Remake have access to area damage for perfect hits, but they also have fast travel that they can use to skip portions of dungeons they've already visited, or even just fast travel out of a dungeon once they are done with it instead of walking out. For combat types, we'll take a brief look at how encounters concluded. For Team Original, we can see quite a bit of pain on the deaths front, as we all had various problems with bosses. Cynesis found himself getting more than his fair share of cheap shots, but struggled the most against the Axum Rangers. Hextree also had a hard time dealing with the Axum Rangers, but Yardovich proved to be a big wall as well. Yulamasa's deaths were sprinkled all throughout, but 3 of them came from Countdown, who loved some unfair sequences. For myself, my largest struggle came from Valentina and Dodo, where things just didn't work out for me. That is also where the one issue encounter came from, where I reset the game in the middle of the encounter. For Team Remake, we can congratulate BGG02 and Deolite for acquiring the coveted No Deaths medal. For Nakuri, his single death came from fighting Jinx 3 as soon as he was available, while Quillpig Gaming's death came from the Axum Rangers. It's also worth noting the total time for Deolite on the run encounters. He had purchased the frog coin item called Earlier Times, which grants the ability to run away from battles. He cleverly used it against bosses that were definitely going to kill him, escaping death from Exor as well as the Smelter and Smithy fight. We're going to be flying past subtypes as grinding was the only applicable thing for people to participate in. The most notable was BGG02, who grinded 119 encounters in the factory/weapon world zone to prepare himself for the Culex optional boss. Now that our anti-grinding specialist has grinded on screen for a really long time, perhaps it's time for me to consider granting him a promotion. Party composition is up next, where we can see each character's participation with Team Remake leading the charge. Super Mario RPG has a level cap of 30, and for what I think is the first time, someone reached that cap, so congratulations to BGG02 for that accolade. Now, one thing of note for Team Remake is that they had the ability to swap in party members mid-combat, which was a new addition in the remake. Because this data only tracks the characters chosen when entering battle, it means that Toadstool's numbers are much lower than her actual usage, which was a lot for Deolite and Quillpig Gaming. For Team Original, what you went into battle with is what you were stuck with, so it's no surprise that Toadstool's encounter participation is at 40%. The levels of characters is also fairly even across the board, where the usage of the experience ring was moved around to different characters for everyone but Cynesis, who didn't purchase it. It's also worth noting that Hextree employed the strategy of letting his party members die on purpose. Because these deaths would typically happen on non-threatening encounters, and the fact that those characters would revive after the battle was over without losing experience, it let him save on a lot of items and flower points. Now for the head-to-head, where party members joining Mario have a faint highlight to show which final party each person ended up with. One of the immediate points of reference is that Team Original ended up with Toadstool due to the power of her group healing and status effect removal. Bowser was also a very common pick, but Geno was valuable to Hextree and Cynesis for a decent portion of the second half of the game. On Team Remake's side, we can see what I would call a very significant shift. Only Nakuri utilized a healer in his final party, and it was Mallow of all characters. Meanwhile, BGG02, Deolite, and Quillpig Gaming all utilized Geno for his powerful magic attacks and solid physical hits, alongside Bowser, who had a lot of hit points and did a lot of damage. For Team Remake, they were afforded the flexibility of entering fights with their offensive characters due to the ability to swap them out whenever a character's turn came up. This became a powerful tool when characters died, had status effects, or other characters needed to pick up the slack. This meant that they could afford a more glass cannon approach and avoid many consequences for it. Cycling to the remaining party composition stats, we can see individual character deaths and each character's level up choices. For myself, Yulamasa, Nakuri, and BGG02, who played the game with prior knowledge, we can, for the most part, see a specific focus on stat distribution. The outlier is BGG02, who noted that he prefers to choose the option with the highest bonus rather than min-max them for the respective archetypes. For Hextree, Cynesis, Daolite, and Quillpig Gaming, they all played the game with no prior knowledge and spread out their stats more. For Mallow and Toadstool, there was still some emphasis on power upgrades, but were recognized for their usefulness in Magic, while for Geno, he was pulled in so many different directions. Also, as a side note, some data is missing for Quillpig Gaming, who had save data corruption and appeared to have replayed the game to catch back up. This process was done off camera, so there were upwards of 2 levels that weren't recorded for him, and his level ups here wouldn't reflect that return journey. Next up is a brief look at some of the miscellaneous things that I tracked, starting with battle bonuses and how many times characters missed all targets with their attacks. For battle bonuses specifically, it came as a huge surprise to see such a discrepancy not only within the same game, but across versions. Yulamasa got 49 luckies and 34 HP maxes, while Hextree got 59 freebies and Cynesis got 47. On Team Remake, BGG02 got 2 attack ups, and Daolite got 35 defense ups. For character misses, Team Remake's Mario misses are fairly high. Nakuri comes out on top with 25 on Mario, while Quillpig Gaming has 11 misses on Geno. Somehow, Team Original failed to reach double-digit misses at all, while some people on Team Remake have more misses on one character than others do combined. The lucky bonus was also tracked, and I was mostly fascinated by the amount of declines. On Team Original, Cynesis rejected every bonus except 2, which was probably influenced by him losing the very first one he got. On Team Remake, BGG02 and Quillpig Gaming got so few opportunities to even engage in the minigame, but BGG02 managed a perfect record. And for Daolite, he declined every coin opportunity, but had the most lucky experience wins and opportunities out of everyone. And for the eagle-eyed people out there, you could acquire multiple lucky bonuses in a fight, but you can only play the minigame once per battle. We've also got the level progression graph for each person. On the left, we have the levels, and on the bottom, many of the bosses in the game. Each boss takes up a rectangle in the graph, and within those rectangles, we have Mario's levels when that boss was defeated. Right off the bat, Yulamasa shows his strong desire to participate in battles. He manages to lead or tie in levels for a significant period of time, until he's eventually overtaken by Daolite on Punchinello and Bunt. For everyone else, there isn't much of a change until Yardovich, or Spiridovich, as he is named in the remake. From there, Nakuri starts to separate himself from the pack. For the remaining 9 bosses shown, we start to see Cynesis and Daolite slow down in levels, as this was around the time they reduced the amount of battles they were doing. For Hextree, he starts to separate from the pack on the Valentina and Dodo fight to match Nakuri for a short while. We can also see BGG02's grinding session in full effect, as right after Countdown, he surges ahead in levels, leaving everyone else in the dust. For a new stat, here's the boss encounter time graph. On the left, we have the time, and on the bottom, each boss that's in the game excluding Culex. Each boss takes up a rectangle, and within those rectangles, the length of time it took each person to defeat the boss on their latest kill attempt. While not the only metric, one of the ways to help spot some troublesome boss fights is to look at how long each person spent on them. And considering the fact that we are presented with the prospect of lessened difficulty in the remake, this felt like a nice data point to compare. For these first 9 bosses, there's actually quite a bit of uniformity, at least more than I expected. On Team Original, we can see that Cynesis and Hextree can skew pretty high in boss time. On Team Remake, Daolite and Quillpig Gaming also played the game blind, and while they do have several moments, they actually find themselves being on par or below their team members in multiple areas. Curiously, Mac, known as Clay Morton in the remake, proved itself to be quite time-consuming for Cynesis and Hextree, but Bowyer was time-consuming for everyone. Then again, for Team Remake, they get introduced to the triple move in this fight, so a few added extra seconds contribute to that, but there's also the inherent randomness built into the fight. For the next set of bosses, we start to see Team Remake flexing those additional tools, as their times start to go down while Team Original have several spikes. Among those spikes are Cyanesis' times, where he found many struggles, among them being the Axum Rangers, where there was a constant string of unfortunateness. Yardovich was another fascinating boss to see, as Team Remake struggled so much less on it thanks to the ability to party swap. This afforded them a lot of flexibility to do damage, which lessened the strain on alternative approaches. Hextree and Cyanesis actually beat the boss without Toadstool in the party, instead engaging in a battle of attrition by lasting long enough for Yardovich to run out of flower points. And for the remaining bosses, there's a little bit of evening out for their times. Notably, Team Original shows consistent struggle on every boss but Magic Koopa, while Nakuri on Team Remake sports some extremely quick times on every boss. By the time everyone reached Smithy's Phase 2, the strategies were fully locked in and it was up to the great gods of randomness whether you'd get the magic head for an extended period of time. Swapping over to the number of enemies, we get a brief look at the distribution of enemies per fight. Of note for Team Original, 3 enemy encounters make up the bulk, hitting upwards of 41%, while 4 and 5 enemy encounters are significantly less common and fail to crack double digits for encounter percent. For Team Remake, their distribution is quite similar, and the only outlier is BGG02 sitting at 57 encounter percent. And again, only 2 of the 119 encounters he grinded were not 3 enemy encounters. We will also cycle in the head-to-head to compare a few metrics, where average time illustrating more of the strengths Team Remake were able to capitalize on. Only Ulamasa could really compete with the faster times, but even then, the encounter time percent remains similar across both teams. And to wrap everything up, the final combined stats will also cycle by. It's admittedly quite interesting to see such a short game be so close to being 50% encounters, but somehow Cyanesis tied himself for the highest encounter percentage, or encounter reports up to this point at 58%. Team Remake are blessed with lower numbers across the board for the most part. Each person played the game on normal difficulty, so no additional shenanigans there. Also for fun, I tracked special enemies and triple moves usage for Team Remake. For special enemies, Nakuri encountered 35, BGG02 had 45, Deolite 22, and Quillpig Gaming 29. For triple moves, Nakuri used 17, BGG02 used 11, Deolite 14, and Quillpig Gaming used it 22 times. And that's the Super Mario RPG Encounter Report, Original vs. Remake Edition. I hope you visit everyone's channels and social media to praise them for all this wonderful data. With another report done, one has to wonder, who won this bout of numbers? Thanks for watching, appreciate it, see you on the next video.